So this is the deck that I tend to use in a multiplayer match when I didn't want to play multiplayer. When everybody gets around and says, oh, no, we don't need 2 pods of 4. Let's do 8 people. Then, well, it's probably going to be Nekusar. Or Estrid, stacks, as punishment. But Nekusar typically gets the job done. Because most people can't convince enough people to kill me. So they spend a lot of their time with maybe one person attacking me, 2 people. Yeah, 2 people. Probably 2 people going after me. And the rest are all kind of sitting back doing their own thing and, you know, hitting each other and all that stuff. And then I get to, you know, put out like a couple enchantments and that kind of does it. So, yeah, Nekusar is like the most fun, unfun deck that I've played or built in a long time. So to start out, we've got Increasing Ambition. It's a tutor. It's definitely more expensive, but it's one card that can search a total of 3 cards for you. So yeah, it's expensive, but in terms of pure card value, I think it's somewhere in the realm of playability. I don't think it's amazing, but it's pretty good. The flashback is relevant, of course, since I'm doing a lot of wheels. So in Nekusar, that card becomes slightly better than in other decks. Windfall, you know, it's a standard wheel effect. It's very important to pay attention to which wheels you're putting in the deck and which wheels you are playing, given any enchantments you have out, because it's very easy to play the wrong wheel and end up not triggering anything. So you got to be careful. Look at the difference between discard, shuffle, all that stuff. Glistening Oil, you put it on Nekusar, and so then he has Infect. So when he deals damage to people, he deals Infect damage to people. We've got Wheel of Fortune. Pretty straightforward. It's, you know, another wheel effect, and it's one of the better ones because they discard and it forces them to draw 7. Underworld Dreams, whenever an opponent draws a card, they take a damage. It's pretty good. There's better things than that. But yeah, overall pretty good card. Megrim. So one of the best cards in the deck. One of the best types of effects in the deck anyway. Whenever an opponent discards a card, it deals 2 damage to him or her. Commander Sphere, again, it's a 3-color deck, so it's got pretty good value in this deck. I don't run it in everything, but I mean, apparently I pretty much do since it was in my Aurelia deck. Diabolic Tutor, you know, a tutor. It's good to have as many tutors as you can. Furnace of Wrath, this is really good, but it can backfire because it doubles damage against you as well. So you want to kind of hold that up and feel, kind of get a feel for what the table's thinking. If they're thinking they don't like you, then you don't want to play this, unless you're going to play it into a wheel and kill everybody. Scroll Rack, probably one of the more important cards in the deck. It allows you to protect cards from wheels, and the amount of times that has saved me the game or won me the game, I literally can't even keep track. It's really one of the most important cards to have in the deck. Waste Not. I don't know why it's Chinese, but it is. I bought a bunch of cheap Chinese ones back when it was like 50 cents or $1 or whatever. Anyway, so it's got 3 things. They're all really good, but this card's triggers are an absolute pain to resolve. And I almost get to the point where I'm so sick of resolving it and just want to like stop playing Magic. So the first one is whenever a player discards a creature card, you create a 2/2 zombie token. The second is whenever a player discards a land card, you add 2 black mana to your mana pool. And the third mode is whenever a player discards a non-creature, non-land card, you draw a card. So when you wheel with 7 opponents, this card is stupid. I mean, absolutely stupid. You'll probably draw like 20 cards, make like 40 mana, and get like 10 to 15 creatures easy. It's pretty hard to like lose the game once you stuck a Waste Not. Signet, pretty straightforward. Time Spiral. So this is an example, right, of a wheel that's not as good because it shuffles things away. It does get you the draw effects, which is good with Nekusar. And you get to untap your lands afterward, which is also good because you can play cards you had in your new hand. So it's good enough to warrant being in here, but you have to remember discard. It doesn't discard. Jace's Archivist is just a wheel on a stick. It's nice because if someone is playing with a huge hand, then this card can get really abusive for all your opponents. Memory Jar, you got to run this card. You can leave it in play until you want to crack it. It's really great because it forces them to draw 7, and it also forces them to discard their hand. And you can play the card, depending on how you time it, you can get to play the cards in it and really get to take advantage of it. Dreadbore is pretty important to be able to destroy a creature or planeswalker in EDH. So we run Dreadbore, and we also run Hero's Downfall. Liliana's Caress is just a more mana efficient Megrim. You should run both, definitely. They're both extremely good cards. Counterspell, I'm not 100% sure if I love having Counterspell in here because it is double blue. I think I'd probably want to run one of the other Counterspells. I've considered Undermine, but I think it's double blue and a black, and so I don't think the value is quite there. They don't discard, they just lose 3 life, I think. I don't even know why I was saying Undermine. I think there's one that makes them discard. But anyway, I just don't think that the double blue is quite as good. I think you're better off running like Arcane Denial, since it forces people to draw cards anyway. Or I think it's probably a May trigger. I don't remember. But anyway, it gives potential for people to draw cards, basically. Wheel of Fate, it's a wheel on suspend, so it's a little tricky because it could be bad timing. But like, it's a 2-mana wheel that kind of hangs over people's heads, and it can kind of make them play around it and mess with their tempo. Anvil of Begarden, so it's a good card because it enables both the card draw damage triggers for you while simultaneously forcing people to discard a card into like Megrim or Liliana. So it's pretty good. Yawgmoth's Will, it gives everything in your graveyard flashback until the end of the turn. It gives, all cards in your graveyard flashback until the end of the turn. And then obviously creatures don't get exiled unless they go into your graveyard. So, yeah. It's really good. Library of Lang, you should consider running this. I think it's pretty awesome. It does the same thing. It protects cards in your hand from wheels. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't really, there's not much justification that has to be done there. It's really good. Force of Will. So, Force of Will is a tough card in this deck because it's either hard cast for double blue or you're removing a blue card from your hand. Typically, I'll end up pitching like a Jace's Archivist or something to the Force of Will, but there's very rarely any good choices to be getting rid of with Force. So you really only use it when you absolutely have to. So next we have Croesus Charm. This one's really good. It bounces a permanent, which is really important in EDH. Destroying a non-black creature is nice, but it's really the bouncing the permanent that I find myself using the most. So Time Reversal. Again, it doesn't discard, but it does result in drawing 7 cards. So basically, the way I try to make it is if you're not going to discard, you need to at least force someone to draw 7. Otherwise, it's not worth having. So there are some like lesser wheels or like, less strong wheels in here that I haven't bothered putting in. Arcane Denial, of course, I already talked about this. I do have Urborg in here. I believe I have Cabal Coffers. It would probably make sense. Howling Mine, pretty straightforward. It makes people draw additional cards. Crawl space I think is really important, but you know, depending on what's attacking you, it may or may not help. But I find in general that it tends to help, and yeah. Dissipation Field, while this card is not generally good in most decks, it is pretty strong in Nekusar because whatever goes back to their hand is always at risk of getting wheeled away. So you can really take advantage of this card. I think it's pretty safe to play it, but I also, recognize that it's a 4-mana spell or 4-mana enchantment that requires you to actually take the damage first. So, like, yes, it has its drawbacks, but it does present a pretty sizable threat to people's permanents once they go back to their hand. Soul Ring. Just my science defense. Sorry. I'm not really even sorry. Chain Reaction. I love this board wipe. Damnation is better, but I still like it. I think Damnation, as soon as it gets reprinted again, I'll probably pick it up. But I can't bring myself to get it in the meantime. Sangromancer. This card's really stupid in this deck. I've gained like hundreds of life off of this card over the course of a game. It really adds up quickly, and it's also like protection against any of those like infinite sacrifice, deal 1 damage, like Blood Artist type things. It's protection against that too, so it's pretty nice. Like, it shuts some combos off, and it gains you a bunch of life over the course of the game, which I know, like, in EDH life gain you don't want to prioritize it, but it can help keep you alive long enough to kill people. So I think it's really worth running. Kami of the Crescent Moon, everybody draws a card. We like that. Darksteel Ingot, indestructible, mana fixing. Spiteful Visions, I like it. My opponents don't like it. I think that's pretty straightforward. The new Ob Nixilis. So I don't know if it's worth having in here. It's a 5-drop. So I think what I may end up doing is maybe cutting Underworld Dreams, just because they do the same thing. Yes, it costs more mana, but being able to destroy 2 creatures basically is nice, as well as the fact that it makes them draw cards. So you could kill someone with it. How likely that is, I don't know, but he's pretty good, I think. Decree of Pain, yeah, it's a lot of mana. 8 mana is a lot to be using to wipe the board, but sometimes cycling it against like goblins and stuff like that can be really, really useful at instant speed. And then also just the fact that you get to draw a card for each creature destroyed. It tends to make it worth the extra mana you had to spend on it. Even if it means waiting a couple more turns and getting pummeled, it tends to help you come back even if you were behind. Last Word is an uncounterable counterspell, which again I've kind of gone over that. I think they're really just uncounterable counterspells are really nice to have in EDH when you don't care so much about mana efficiency and tempo and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, tempo, yes, important, but it's not like Legacy where you care that much about can they pay 2 mana for it, can they not pay 2 mana. They're going to be able to pay 2 mana. You don't want to run Spell Pierce generally. So Mystic Retrieval, good card value for returning things back from the graveyard to your hand. It's also good because it has flashback, so when it goes to your graveyard off of a wheel, it doesn't really matter to you. Incendiary Command, so this is fine. It doesn't do as nice a job of it's not as good of a wheel, but it's actually really important because of its 3rd mode, which is destroy target non-basic land. You use that to destroy like glacial chasms, which otherwise would prevent people from taking damage from Nekusar. So I think you really need to run Incendiary Command in the deck. I know it's not the best, but there's some decks that you almost can't beat if you don't have non-basic land destruction. Magus of the Jar, he's definitely slower, but he's a memory jar on a stick. So I like him, but I could very easily cut him if I had to. if I ever decide to pick up Time Twister and put it in this deck again, I'd probably cut him. But I honestly don't think I'm gonna do that, because I just it's more of a casual deck. So yeah. So Reforge the Soul. It's a really fun card. It's nice because if you have Scroll Rack, you can take, you can really take full advantage of the Miracle on it. So I'd recommend running it, and I don't think they're crazy money right now, so it's kind of a nice alternative to Wheel of Fortune if you didn't, get one. Demonic Tutor. I think we don't have to explain that too much. Prosperity. I love Prosperity because it's a great card to dump mana into when you just had like 30 or 40 mana come in off of a Waste Not in multiplayer. You can pretty easily kill the whole table just with Prosperity. Liliana Vess. So the thing I like about her is, yeah, she discards, yeah, she tutors, but she's old, right? She's like the first Liliana. And a lot of people tend to discount her, and a lot of people ignore her. I'm really surprised at how many people will just ignore Liliana and forget that her -8 puts all creatures onto the battlefield under my control from all graveyards. So it's a cool way to win, and it actually works a lot more than I would expect. And that's actually across multiple playgroups, not just like in one playgroup. Like I've managed to successfully resolve her ultimate in like several different settings. So Terminate, destroy target creature, it can be regenerated. Molten Psyche, so it's not bad, but the Metalcraft, sometimes you have, but you really don't have it as often as I would like for this card to be, great. It's also Shuffle, so I'm not sure how I feel about this card. I really have to think about it, because if you want to deal damage to somebody based on the number of cards they drew, you can also just use the one from Guild Pact, Cerebral Vortex, I think. Can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I think that's what it's called. Yeah, so it's not a bad card. I just think it, it could be better. Counterflux, uncounterable counterspell that could also counter all spells I don't control if I overload it. Uncounterable counterspells in EDH are great, of course. Rix Maddie, I think you might as well have it in here. There's no reason not to, right? Rakdos Signet, just past that. Silumgar's Command is probably one of the biggest underperformers in the deck. He's outclassed by pretty much every removal spell in the deck. I think I'll still keep it in here. If nothing else, then simply because of the return target permanent to its owner's hand. But to be honest, I think it would be better as a Cyclonic Rift, which I don't really want to have too many copies spread across too many decks, since it's going to get reprinted, probably somewhat in the probably in the near future, maybe in the new Commander decks coming out. I don't know. I don't want to have too many of them sitting in decks. Master of the Feast. This is a really good card in this deck, because people are going to be attacking you, and he's a good blocker. Winds of Change. It's Shuffle. It's not 7. It's how much they already had. So it's definitely one of the weaker wheels, and if it were literally any more than 1 mana, I wouldn't even be playing it. Swan Song, one of my favorite counter spells in EDH, and I guess kind of in general, but really more so in EDH. Geth. So he's good, and people kind of tend to forget that he can get artifacts as well. So over the course of your game, people are typically like destroying other people's artifacts, and he allows you to bring them back. He's also an amazing mana sink for Waste Not, because you can bring back a bunch of stuff, and it also mills. Like, you know, I haven't ever milled somebody out with it, but I'm sure it's possible to do. So I think Geth is, you know, I think he's a pretty solid choice. Mizium Mortars, it's pretty much just a worse chain reaction, minus the fact that it doesn't kill Nekusar. So that's cool. I think it's fine running it in conjunction with the chain reaction. But again, I think, you know, having Damnation would be ideal, as, you know, either the Mizium Mortars or the chain reaction. I probably would replace the chain reaction for the Damnation, to be honest. Fate Unraveler, I think this is another card that could very easily be cut, because it's a 4-mana card that does the same thing as a 3-mana card and a 5-mana card, but the 5-mana card, which is Obnix, I think is better. And the 3-mana Underworld Dreams, the only reason I think it's basically the same thing is because it is triple black to cast, so it's kind of tough. I don't think Fate Unraveler is bad, but I just don't think it's like amazing per se. Mind over Matter. So this is fine. The main reason I run Mind over Matter in this deck is because I have Temple Bell in here, so I can use Mind over Matter with Temple Bell to make everybody draw their deck and either mill everybody, you know, make everybody lose from that trigger, or if I have Nekusar out, I can make everybody take damage equal to the number of cards in their deck, roughly. So I think Mind over Matter is, you know, pretty good to have in here, but it's also 6 mana with quadruple blue, so kind of hard to say. Evacuation is a really, really good card, and again, Cyclonic Rift is important as well. One of the reasons Evacuation is so good in this deck is because of all your wheels. You can put everyone's creatures back into their hands and then just use a wheel and get rid of them all for good. So I think Evacuation is worth running. You know, I want to put a Cyclonic Rift in. I may end up just taking Cyclonic Rift out of Mizzix at this point and put something else into Mizzix. Psychosis Crawler, you know, it's been fine. I feel like this card gets a lot more hype than it deserves. At best, it's like a big creature that doesn't have trample that gets chump blocked. At worst, it's, you know, whenever I draw a card, each opponent loses a life, which is fine, but it's not amazing. I cut this card a lot, and then put it back in because people are like, why did you have your freaking Psychosis Crawler in there? Like, because it's never performed well for me. Cataract Parasite is another card that's kind of like borderline. It's good. You know, if you have a red permanent out, it's good, obviously, but he's not really online as much as I would like. And of course, here's Temple Bell, which works with Mind over Matter and just works with, you know, the deck in general. So there's there's definitely some changes that can be made. You know, Fate Unraveler, I think, could come out. Psychosis Crawler could probably come out. I just don't really know what I would be putting into the deck right now. In addition, I haven't looked at the last couple sets. I haven't looked at sets really in the last 2 years, in terms of like cards that might go in Nekusar. So I'm sure that there's been stuff printed that would be good to add to this deck at this point. So I'll have to take a look and see what I can find. But yeah, so Nekusar, he's fun. Yeah, he tends to be targeted, so you gotta be careful with him. This deck I've had for many years. Well, not many years, but I've had him since he came out, so 2013. Yeah, 2013. You know, so that's a pretty good amount of time to be able to work on a deck and kind of fine tune it. So it's pretty, you know, it's been tweaked about as much as I can think of, minus the fact that there's a couple cards in here I wish I had better options, or even just more mana efficient options for. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Fun deck, certainly, and Group Slug is, you know, always a good way to punish 8-player EDH games, because they suck.